Hello, good evening everybody. Today I am going to discuss academic psychology in India, that is part 4. In our previous class we discussed about the academic development in India, particularly in pre-independence era and post-independence era. We also discussed some of the development or how colonial period and post-colonial period psychology in India developed, and different departments also formed in that time. And basically the second issues we also discussed in the 1950 to 1960. There is a formation of NIMANS and the Central Institute of Psychiatry in Ranchi. We also discussed about formation of Calcutta University, which is also a very important landmark. So different departments formed across the country. Apart from, we look at that little formations in further development, that is 1970. In 1970 there is a important point we can notice here, that is a problem between Western concept and Eastern thought. So most of the psychologists were trained in Western concept, like most of probably America and Europe, they were trained, and those who were trained in that that is out of country, that people are mostly aided the department of psychology, most of the universities. But when it is matter of research, when they are trying to apply their theory, but it won't apply to Indian context. That means many of the research theory they formed, they are not going to apply in Indian context. So their problems are arise, that is what Indian people facing the problems, that psychological theory and psychological applications which we learn from Western context, they are not going to apply in Indian context. So that is where we try to look into our native problems and Indian related problems, and we have, it is related to, whether it is related to population, whether it is related to culture, we need to look at that. And Indian scripture, Indian wisdom, we have to learn, then only we can understand to apply that principle. So Western principles or Western learning may not apply fully to Indian context. So that was one of the issues. And also, and that time at 1970, even psychologists start thinking about social problems which are relevant, uh, psychological principle to Indian problems, like what are the Indian related problems related to rural area, and social related problems, and culture. In different culture we cannot apply. For example, psychological test prepared by Western psychologists, we cannot apply to the Indian populations. That is what we started adapting. At least we can adapt that Western context or psychological test to Indian population. That is what adaptation starting. And also there are some psychologists who started developing in Indian context psychological test. So this is one of the important changes. And modern psychology to Indian culture. So even modern psychology here is basically Western context psychology. So we have to apply to Indian culture. Yeah, modern psychology, that means Western psychology, what we learn from Western context, and those who are trained in Western context to Indian culture, they start trying to Indian culture, that won't apply here. So they started thinking about Indian related issues. Basically, there are some issues in Indian culture like what we generally discuss, that is we can apply here, that are some of the areas like health, education, organization, and human and social development. As we know that there are a number of problems which we can also share, like health psychology in rural areas, and education, as we know that rural area facing the problems, like education is one of the biggest issues where psychology can apply. So what are the Indian related problems related to education? It's not Western context. How Indian psyche works related to education, how one can apply, like when school counselor applies something to the students, psychological principles, he must be trained, he must be know the Indian soil, and he must be know that what kind of problems Indian people, Indian students are facing generally. So that is an issues. And organizations, as we know, again, organization and industrial development and management skill, again it is Indian scenario, it's totally different. So that is what we have to apply in organization level also. And human social development. So human resources, as we know, psychologists very well know that human resources every time is an asset. So same way we try to keep applying this human and social development when we study only in Indian context and start understanding the population, Indian population and Indian sample. So Indian population and Indian sample and cultural fair, so which match Indian problems. So that is what in 1970 people thinking on this decade. And psychologists also giving attention to social issues which are socially relevant. So research is taking not too much an experiment oriented, but it is taking towards social oriented problems to address the social issues. So these are the classes, today's video, and I am going to take next class, that is 1980, which is basically indigenation. We will also discuss how Indian psychology and Indian native psychology emerge as applications, and what are the scriptures, Indian scriptures, as we discussed in earlier Bhagavad Gita and Buddhism, and Indian psyche and Indian culture going to apply this in our upcoming 1980 year. So we discuss on one by one, and please thank you for watching videos, share and subscribe, and don't forget to press bell icon so that our videos reach you regularly.